looks like everything's set up. So, okay, this is a video that I have been meaning to do for a while, but just never really had the chance to do, or the time, I guess. This semester's been busy, but anyways, I'm actually finally gonna be covering a subject on forensics, one that interests me in particular. It's just gonna be basics for this one, but I hope it'll be somewhat interesting. So, let's get started, shall we? With my Alright, looks like my computer is doing it. So, here we go. So today I'm going to be talking about blood spatter and bloodstains. So first off, bloodstain analysis it's not exactly a complete science. I mean, it is, but it can be subjective. And it's based a little bit more on perception than actual science, although there are some general classifications. The technical term that forensic scientists and crime scene investigators use is blood spatter, not blood splatter. The correct term is blood spatter. There's only one L. And especially over the last few years, I've gotten very picky with that. It just happens. So there are three basic types of blood spatter, and that is going to be low velocity. Then there's also medium velocity blood spatter and high velocity. And these are all, each of them is kind of broken up into different categories in of itself. Low velocity blood spatter is primarily, blood that falls, so as a result of gravity. And it doesn't create anything too impressive. More often than not, it will... Oh, great, my mouse is not working at the moment. I'll get that up at some point. Blood falling as a result of gravity usually creates these nice even circles. Oh my gosh, are you kidding? Is it? Okay, never mind, it is working. I'm saying a lot. I need to not. I completely forget what I was saying because my mouse decided to go on the fritz. Apologies. But it will create these nice fat round drops. Seriously, I need to stop saying There is also blood volume, so basically a large volume of blood that basically falls as a result of gravity, and it creates these large pools of blood. This is actually from a presentation that I created a while back. It's not real blood, unfortunately. When I say unfortunately, I wanted to use my own blood for these experiments, but I wasn't able to, so I had to make do and make my own. But if I could, I very much would have used my own blood. I mean, that would have been much cooler. Okay, this is a bad image for some reason, but this right here is basically blood into blood. So it's just blood falling onto other droplets of blood. It's not quite the same thing as volume blood, but it is similar. I don't know why this was cut out, but it's basically a blood droplet, and right here, these little specks that you see, what is the word that I'm thinking of? But these little areas of blood right here are called satellite stains, and it's satellite spatter. It's blood falling into blood and then ricocheting outwards. This is kind of similar, except this is more angled blood droplets, which I will kind of cover later. So in addition to, blood falling, there is also something called transfer stains. That is the result of an object that has blood on it, or it's basically just the movement of blood onto an object or on an object, something of the sort. Blood spatter analysis commonly follows Locard's exchange principle, which in basic terms is every contact leaves a trace. So if you got blood on your hand and you touch something, you're going to leave blood on that object, whatever you touch. There are various different types of transfer stains, mostly classified by, what is leaving an impression. So for this one, I cannot see that for some reason. This is just a hand hand. Wow. Okay. I suppose I should say this, but in regards to transfer stains, there are two primary categories where there is a swipe and a wipe. There is a significant difference. Swipe is you have an object like a hand that already has blood on it and you basically smear it on the wall. A wipe is where you have an object running through existing blood. So swipe is basically you have blood on your hand, you wipe it against a wall, and swipe it against the wall actually. And then wipe is there's already blood on the wall and your hand just wipes across. And oh yeah, here's a fabric swipe stain as well, and then hair swipe as well, because hair can get blood on it and swipe across the surface. But this is interesting. So for a wipe pattern, you can generally tell the difference between a swipe and a wipe because a wipe pattern has this skeletonized stain on it. It has this, the edges are the result of blood having sat in one location for a while, and usually the outside of the blood stain dries out first before the middle does. So then if it's not completely dry, or if it's mostly dry, and you wipe an object across that surface, it will leave this skeletonized outside and then just spread the blood across the direction where the object moved. So, right, oh, sorry, that was my phone. I told myself over nothing. Let me go back real quick. So then the next type is medium velocity blood spatter. This is a very wide category of spatter. This is where it starts to get a little bit tricky because various objects can create medium velocity spatter. It requires a moderate amount of force to classify it as that, so it's never big, fat, round droplets like with low velocity, and it's never transfer stains. Well, not never, but it's not usually transfer stains, although it can be. But instead, it's a combination of some fat drops, maybe some smaller ones, but it kind of depends. This is kind of a wide category here. Medium velocity blood spatter is typically seen in blunt force trauma incidents, beatings, stabbings, those kinds of incidents. The size of the weapon can affect the blood stains. The larger the weapon, the more surface area it has, the more spatter it can create. There are a few other prominent types of blood spatter in this category, but arterial spurts are one of them. So it's basically an artery is cut or something, or even shot. It's basically exposed to the air, and the heart forcefully pumps out the blood because, you know, it's an artery. It's sending out the blood to the body, and since it's coming from the heart, like, you know, the jugular. Such a fun word to say. I don't know why, but if the jugular gets cut, then the heart is going to be forcing that blood out. So the blood will basically spurt outwards because the heart is pumping it. It results in these long patterns. Basically, it's like huge spurts and chunks of blood that are thrown on an object, and then as a result of gravity, the blood is carried downward. So there is that. Maybe. Here we go. Alright, another type of medium velocity blood spatter is cast off, which can be frequently seen, where basically an object has blood on it, and as a result of kinetic energy, basically, blood will fly off of an object while the object is in motion and creates, you know, droplets of blood that look like this, that are kind of more angled, which, again, I'll discuss a little bit more later. And then, wait. Okay. Not sure why that happened. And then the last one is high velocity blood spatter. So that's basically this mist-like pattern. Usually it requires a tremendous amount of force in order to create. I mean, this is like explosions, car crashes, heavy machinery accidents. Bullet wounds is a very common one. Guns can create like various high velocity blood spatter patterns, no matter what kind of gun it is. Obviously, the faster the bullet, the more mist-like pattern it's going to create. And for guns in particular, there are two different kinds of spatter: forward spatter and blowback or back spatter. Forward spatter is you get a gun, you get a bullet shot through you, and the exit wound. And the forward spatter is the blood from the exit wound that's basically spitting out. And then blowback or back spatter is you get a gun to your forehead, it's blood ejecting from the front and then rebounding from the source of the impact. Then usually it'll end up, depending on, well, not usually, but it'll go a pretty small distance, but if you're close enough, you're probably going to get some of that blowback spatter. Yeah, those are the three main types. There are all different kinds of spatter patterns out there that exist. It's kind of ridiculous. Okay, I don't know. You did not see that icon. I always keep that on me just in case. The angle of impact is something of major importance to bloodstain analysts. There are two basic parts of it. So there's the body. It's the body of the droplet. And then also the tail. So that's this long portion right here. Now, sometimes bloodstain analysts need to look at the angle of impact to determine other information about a crime scene. I mean, it's usually very important. Like, where was this person shot? Like, where was this person stabbed? Like, just basic homicide-like examples. There are plenty of other examples as well, but still. But in order to do that, and this is where it can get a little tricky, because this is almost the perception error that can result from this. I did not word that correctly, but I guess that is the best I can come up with. So when measuring the angle of impact, you're basically taking the arc sine or the sine inverse, they're both technically the same thing, of the width of the body over the length. The tail does not get included. The tail has no effect on this calculation. This is basically the cutoff line right here if I were to take a measurement of this droplet of blood. It's just from these 2 points, the width, to the length, and it stops right about there. And taking the sine inverse, arc sine, of that value will give you a good estimate on the angle of impact. But you also have to be careful. You can't just use one blood droplet in order to make a determination. You need to use many. I cannot exactly remember. I want to say it's 20 sounds right, but I feel like it's at least 50 or some number like that. You need, if available, you need dozens of calculations from droplets of blood in order to get a better estimate on the angle of impact for any bloodstain, basically. And the more elongated a droplet of blood, the more extreme the angle of impact. So when it comes down from 90 degrees, it's this nice big circle. There's really nothing else you need to do. But once you start getting into, in a more extreme angle, like 10 or 20 degrees, and by that I mean 10 to 20 degrees on the horizontal, or that would be like 70, 80 degrees on the 10 to 20 degrees on the vertical, and 80, 70 degrees on the horizontal. Apologies, I don't know why my mind flipped that. Once you get into those extreme angles, it becomes very elongated, kind of like this one right here. But if you're working with something where the angle of impact was not as extreme, it's going to be more cylindrical in appearance, but still have that slight elliptical shape to it. But you take various blood droplets and it can lead you to a point of convergence. So basically, the point of convergence is the origin of an entire bloodstain. This was actually something for a project I did where I created my own bloodstain and I used various droplets of blood that were relatively elongated, and then I used that to give myself a general area of convergence, which was this red circle right here. they're, again, the exact same thing. You need a lot of blood droplets in order to even make a rough estimate on the point of convergence. It's all you can really do. I am pretty sure that that is all. I feel like there are a few more things I could have included, but yes, I said that right. There could have been a few other things I could have included, but those are pretty much the basics. Some of the stuff some people may know, some of the stuff some people may not know, but I do hope it was informative. And maybe I'll do something a little more specific later on. We'll have to see. And yeah, that should be it. So that is the end of this Bloodstain Basics video. So, thank you for watching.